Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Early Mornings LALATE with our second broadcast of the morning. And you know what's coming up in a few minutes from now is the new jobless claims. And a lot of eyes are going to be looking and see if there's a spike in the number based upon the events of Florida, California, and the airlines. The airlines' furloughs and layoffs announced last week did not really permeate into last week's jobless claims. But will they hit this week? And what could you expect in the lip service between Mitch, Nancy, and Steve today? That and more, and this is Early Mornings LALATE. Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Early Mornings LALATE. Hope you're good waking up on the East Coast. It's here on the West Coast, and it's just before dawn. It's 3:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and I'm glad you joined me. Some quick financial news as you start the new day. All eyes are going to be on the new jobless number released this Thursday morning. The new jobless claims number is not expected to be good. It's expected to be somewhere in the 800,000 range. The question is how bad it will be. The number has simply stayed above 800,000 since the pandemic hit. Sometimes getting up to 1 million. It hasn't improved, and it hasn't shown room of improvement. Last week it went down about 100,000 or so. The question is really, is there also inflation kicking in? There's new belief that there may be inflation kicking in. It's very clear a cyclical upturn, said Economic Cycle Research Institute co-founder Lasharm Achulin in a statement yesterday. I'll tell you how that's pronounced: a pervasive and persistent rise in the top line of inflation. Inflation in the face of stagnant economy causes stagflation. It's a word you're going to hear from the Trump and the Biden administration over the next couple of days because it's a big worry. And they're not unique until announcing it. The Federal Reserve has spoken about it as well. When you see prices going up, but you don't see the economy going up, then that could be stagflation. And stagflation is not a good thing. Overnight, we saw what happened with other things like the airlines. On Wednesday, United Airlines announced a massive loss, $1.8 billion in the third quarter. That's compared to Delta's $5.4 billion loss. The question is, with all these losses, how long can this economy sustain this without relief on the near horizon? Back when this pandemic was first hitting, PUA was announced under CARES Act 1, along with FPUC. And when PUA went live on April 28th, people really didn't know what it was. I recorded PUA on the very first day of this channel on April 25th. And in today's throwback video, I bring you PUA from April 30th, 2 days after it launches. The moment it launched, there was problems. Some states didn't even have it yet. But in California, the moment it launched, people were having problems. And what I did at the time was read on-air comments and see the problems that people were doing. And because there were so many confusing factors about PUA, I had to separate it as a separate video. Today, PUA is still applicable because people are still trying to figure out how to do maximum benefits, escalated benefits, and more. And ironically, when I recorded escalated benefits this week here on set just a few days ago, some viewers had never heard about it. But as you'll see in this throwback video from April 30th, I talked about escalated benefits the very first week of this channel. The only thing you need to understand is it was shot on location, shot in front of the Pacific Ocean. You'll see the wind and you'll hear the wind. So in true regard, you'll see why some things are shot on location and some things are not. Enjoy the beautiful ocean breeze and enjoy the beautiful ocean sound in this throwback clip. This and more, and see you next on Mornings LALATE, started at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with more about those economic news, and finally 28 at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time. Have a good morning. All right, PUC. PUA, Pandemic Unemployment Assistance. The PUA EDD application in California and elsewhere has caused a lot of confusion. We've been reporting on it daily for you. Your comments have come in massive amounts. We are here to answer your questions daily. We're getting back to you about every 4 hours. This is the latest update on the PUA, how you can get benefits, how much you can get, how you can increase those benefits, and a lot of questions you had about whether you're an employee versus independent contractor. How does self-employed versus employee apply for PUA benefits? We're shooting here on location in beautiful Redondo Beach. Sorry if there's a little bit of wind in the background, but I wanted to give you something to enjoy. All right, so let's back up with a lot of your questions. Some of your questions all focus on a previous video and my comments to you about giving a correspondence to raise your benefits. Let's back up. That comment has caused a little bit of confusion. The way PUA and unemployment benefits work, especially PUA, is they first say you are eligible and you have been approved. When you go through the PUA application process, and granted, it's done in your state, it's done on your unemployment website, every site is slightly different. But when you go through that process, they generally do not ask you how much your 2019 earnings were. They generally don't ask that. It is at the end of the process, they say you are approved. When you're approved, you are approved at the base amount. The purpose of the PUA application process is to get your approval. And when you are approved at the base amount, you're at the base amount of your state, which can be anywhere from $169 to $139 per week. If this is, and it generally is, from the month of February to July, the federal government, because of the CARES Act, throws $600 on top of that. So your benefits on a weekly basis is $139 plus $600. Now, in an earlier video, I explained to you that after you're approved, and please listen to that, after you're approved for PUA benefits, at the base amount, you have to get through that process. Then you can go on your computer, write a letter, write it in Word format, convert it to PDF, get your 1099 front page ready as a PDF, and upload it into the correspondences of your state unemployment website in your portal, in your username, and say, hey, I think I qualify for a raised PUA benefits. I've been approved, but I think I qualify for raised benefits. And as I explained in the previous video, if your 2019 earnings were about $30,000 or more, then you can qualify for max benefits. Max benefits under PUA is the maximum benefits that your state provides, which in most states is about $300 to $400 per week. So that's in addition to the $600. So let's recap. When you're going through the PUA process, in most states, you are generally going through it to get approval. When approved, you're at the base level. My comments in a previous video about sending correspondences are after you're approved for PUA to then raise that to max benefits if that is your scenario. And for most of you, it may be your scenario if you made more than $30,000 in 2019 earnings. All right. Another question that has come up, and your questions, because you're sophisticated, you're knowledgeable, you generally understand how all these things work, you just have unusual scenarios. Are people asking questions where they were both employees and independent contractors? They don't know which one to do. Okay, let me explain. Every state does PUA a little bit differently. In some states, when you go on the website, it will say that we will not process a PUA application unless you have first applied for for unemployment benefits and been denied because you're self-employed. They actually say it on the website. It is a requirement. Other states don't say that. they basically want you to go through unemployment and get denied because you list yourself as self-employed, and then go through the process. Some of you have asked, though, which one should you go through? The answer might be the practical answer here. When you go through unemployment or you go through PUA and you are both that person, for example, you worked for Home Depot in 2019 and got laid off, and you're an Uber driver, independent contractor, so you were both a W-2 and a 1099, a W-9. Which one do you apply for? Well, if you were, and this is assuming that both of them you were let off because of coronavirus. Which one do you apply for? The practical answer, and this is where you decide, is that when you go through this process, they will ask you, after approval, to provide documentation to substantiate your claim, and you're possibly doing it to increase the max benefits based upon your 2019 earnings. So, if you were a W-2 with Home Depot and laid off because of coronavirus, and were making $75,000 a year, yeah, I know that's not true. That's a high number, but I'm using an example. $75,000 a year from Home Depot, but you did Uber on the side and only made $2,000 last year, and both of the cases you were let off because of coronavirus and hence qualify for both either unemployment or PUC. Which one would you apply for? I think the answer is pretty obvious. One of them triggers max benefits, the other one doesn't. So there you go. Yesterday's video we talked about a glitch. And I'll recap it today. There's a glitch on the California website because, as you know, PUA also applies for people who are normally on unemployment and have exhausted unemployment. Under the CARES Act, under PUA, you can get an extension for the number of weeks for unemployment coverage. Under the California EDD website, there's a glitch that's not allowing you to process it. We have more about that on yesterday's video. All right. Another question you've asked is, how do you do one thing and how do you do another? In the case of PUA versus unemployment, please understand, and hopefully this is clear, that benefits are calculated the same way, whether you're under PUA or under unemployment. It is not inherently clear from these websites that that's the case. Let me back up and explain why. When Corona hit, unemployment systems existed already in every state. They said, okay, those unemployed individuals may apply for relief from their state. Immediately, someone very smart in the government federal government realized, hey, we have a lot of independent contractors and self-employed individuals. They can't apply for unemployment insurance because they're not employees under the tax code. They are independent contractors. So they pass the CARES Act part for PUA. And under PUA, it basically says we will treat you, independent contractors or self-employed individuals, the same as employees. So, at the end of the day, whether the PUA applicants and the unemployment applicants are just two different versions. PUAs was an add-on adopted by Congress to provide coverage for independent contractors that were not covered under normal unemployment insurance. All right, how long does it take to get paid, and what do you do after get improved? And this came up in a lot of comments. As always, comment. We learn from your comments. We're here to answer your comments. We answer them within 4 hours, and generally, we learn about things that we didn't even know was an issue until we see your comments. All right. People have asked, they've been approved for PUA, but they don't see anything on the website that says they're getting money. Yeah, that's not your fault. That's the confusion of the websites. The way the websites generally work is the following. And here we are to really help you understand this. No one's explaining it to anyone, and the phone numbers for all these agencies are closed. when you're approved for PUA, and you know you will be approved because there is something in the correspondences or the claim tab of the website that says you've been approved, and you haven't received a notice anywhere on the website you've been denied, then you go to a tab, usually at the top left, in your portal, in the website for your unemployment PUA app processing. And it says certify for benefits. It says something along the lines of certify for benefits or request weekly payments, something like that. What's going on? Basically, just because you're approved for PUA doesn't mean you're getting PUA benefits unless you go to the next step. Yeah, there is a next step. They don't tell you this. No one explains this to anyone. We're explaining it to you. You have to then certify and explain and verify, that's basically verify, what happened to you certain respective weeks. And if you filed a PUA on April 28th or April 29th, it's generally good, these websites are generally good about bringing you back in time. They'll ask you what happened in the week of March 15th, what happened the week of March 23rd, what happened the week of March 30th. It'll ask you about these weeks backwards. When it's doing that, it's queuing up the system to issue you payments for those weeks. No one explains this, but that's the way it works. So just because you're approved for PUA doesn't mean you're going to get any payment unless you go into the respective week and say, hey, yeah, I was impacted in this respective week. Now, you have to qualify for the respective week. You have to have endured the eligibility of each of those respective weeks. But when you answer yes, if it is yes, then at the end, guess what's going to happen? A screen's going to come up and says, hey, you've now certified the week of March, the week of April, the week of this, and you're going to get 7 something, which is 600 plus the base benefits. It's not until you do that do you cue the system to make you, to issue you a payment. And there you go. So a lot of you have asked, hey, you got approved for PUA, but you don't see you're getting any money. Well, a lot of people who aren't watching our video, and if they are your friends, please tell them that. They're going to sit around and say, hey, I got approved for PUA, and why did you get a check? And why did I not get a check? Because you didn't do the next step, and there's another next step to do. All right. There's finally a last step in some states. In some states, you have to ensure that you have provided your financial information to receive the payments. In some states, you don't. In California, you have to wait, God knows, 4 weeks until you get a debit card in the mail, and that debit card will be funded thereafter, but you have to wait 4 weeks to get the debit card. In other states, you have to provide your bank routing number and your bank account number, and you'll get a direct deposit within 3 days. Hey, how wonderful is that? But if you provide the number off by 1 digit, you're going to wonder, where's your payment? It's not going to be there, and it's not going to send you an error either. It's just not going to issue the payment. Now, if you have provided incorrect routing number or banking account number, go back in there and update it, and then it will do it the next round again, which is just a few days later. Don't worry about it. Finally, some of your states, I feel for you. Someone in the comments said they were in Hawaii, and it says on their website they're not getting their payments until May. Awful. I mean, your senators want to get paid the next day, and they want you to wait around till May. How horrible is that? Finally, please pay attention. Well, probably this will be the subject of videos come in May, but please pay attention to the requirements of documentation that your state as to what you're supposed to provide to them by a deadline, generally in May, about PUA. After you're approved, it's going to say somewhere in there you have to provide us information by some date in May. Make note of that and don't forget it. Also, this was said in yesterday's video about PUA, and we're making these videos almost every day based upon your comments. Keep them coming. That you have to certify for PUA It appears every week. Now, why am I saying it appears? In some states, there's this strange, California, there's a strange disclaimer on one of the pages that says you do not need to certify anything between now and May 15th. You just have to do it once. But you go in the website and it asks you to certify every week. So I have no idea what's going on. Anyway, remember generally to ensure that you are certifying for benefits every week if you are impacted because of coronavirus every week. If you don't get paid. It's as simple as that. You forget to do it, you won't get paid. What happens if time goes by? I'm pretty certain that if you forget a week and then you do it a week later, you can get the benefits, but you're going to get it late. I mean, you're going to get your payment late. So let's say this week you forget to do it, and the next week you say, "Oh my God, I forgot to do last." In 2 weeks you forgot to do the prior week. You can do them together. You're just going to get them late, and there you go. So PUA, of all our videos, it has been the video that has more questions and comments because it is hideously confusing. Keep your comments coming. We are here to help. Today's recordings include 4 videos that may all apply to you. PUA, possible second stimulus check, EIDL, and finally PPP, that wonderful PPP. Stay with LALATE for more.